Hey, Kim and Diana, you're early birds. Can you hear me okay? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can't, or a thumbs up if you can, I should say? Hope everything is going well. I'm just checking to make sure everything is looking good. Just see this. That's good. I'll fix that. I'll fix that high exposure too. I'll give everybody. I'm still a little bit early. It's telling me to sign into the chat. Okay. I guess I'll have to do that. That's something new. This is weird. Wow. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay, good. I think we're good. Hey, Kim. Hi, Carolyn. Hi, Patricia. Jean. Hi, Adirondack. Ooh, Adirondacks are pretty. I haven't been up there for a long time. Hi, Pat. Marcy from West Virginia. How are you? Hey, Lisa. I'm going to give everybody a minute. I know I'm a little bit early getting everything started. I just want to make sure. And I finally learned the trick. I know I did a Serger Savvy in July where I could only get my face camera to work. And I talked to a friend of mine who also uses the same software. And she gave me the trick that you have to rename your camera every time you do another live stream, which is kind of a pain, but as long as I know, that's the important thing. Hey, Lisa. First time joining. Oh, well, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, we got a few different things to talk about today. And I actually remembered to hit the record button because I always put my little sign up so to remind myself. Let's give everybody another minute. Hi from San Diego. Hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, we've got a busy, fun, exciting sewing fall coming up. Technically, it's not fall; it's still summer. But in Connecticut, since the end of August, or really even like the third week of August, you start to see little tinges of color on the trees, and not all of them, but some of them. And I can hear acorns hitting the deck in the backyard. I will tell you something interesting, though. It's funny because the day I came back from Bernini University in June, I think it was June 22nd, it was a Saturday. And I flew home, and we were going to go to my nephew's graduation party in the afternoon. And I had to be up. I hadn't gone to bed. My flight got canceled. While I was having dinner the night before, they announced that it was canceled on a text. And so I had to get back to my room and call the airline, which, of course, I think a bunch of flights had gotten canceled. So it was a long time getting rescheduled. So I didn't get to bed till 1. I had to be up for a 4 o'clock trip to the airport. And so when I got home, I said to my husband, well, I'm going to take a 1-hour nap. And then I'm going to get up and shower, and we'll go to Nathan's party. And as it turned out, just as we were getting ready to leave, we had this horrendous hailstorm. And so we didn't get to go because it was just hailing like crazy. And apparently our neighborhood was one of the hardest hit in the area. And so it did some damage to our roof. Without a leak, it damaged the shingles, but nothing through and through that damaged the house at all. But we did get a new roof. And so that was thanks to the insurance company. And it would have been due for a new roof in about 3 years. So I said that was a very well-timed hailstorm. But other than that, nothing else happened that was a problem. But I do want to say, for anybody who's in the path of Hurricane Francine, please, please, please take all your precautions, stay safe, and don't do anything that might put you in danger. So we're praying for all of you and hope that the storm is much less, that it gears down very quickly and goes out to sea. But we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed and say our prayers on that one. Oh, hi from Washington State. How are you? So I had a few different things I wanted to talk to you about today. And the first one, believe it or not, is about the knee lift on the L890. I had a question from a woman a few weeks ago, and she was saying that if you put your presser foot down with the lever in back of the presser foot on the machine, or no, excuse me, if you have raised the presser foot with the presser foot lever on the machine, should you be able to lower the presser foot just with the knee lift and not have to manually put down the lever again? And I said, no, you have to put the lever down. Well, guess what? I was wrong, because I had always done it that way, and I just assumed you needed to put the lever down manually. And so when I thought of it afterwards, I came downstairs, and about a week had gone by before I thought about this to try it out. I think I was traveling someplace. And I said, oh my goodness, I made a mistake. And yes, you can lower the presser foot with the knee lift if you have raised it by hand with the lever. So I stand corrected, and I tried to find the email that question came from, and I could not find it. Sometimes when I get questions through YouTube and things like that, excuse me, they come directly into my email, and after I answer it, a lot of times I will delete the question from my email list just so I don't get so much stuff clogged up in my computer that I can find it. And I think that was the case with that. So I couldn't find her email to correct myself in that, but I'm glad I'm doing it on the Serger Savvy. I'm just glad, but I apologize for giving you that wrong answer. So anyway, so that was the first thing that I wanted to mention. Also, just to talk about upcoming events. This Saturday is part 1 from 12 to 3:30 on Eastern Time on Zoom for my specialty feet and attachments class. And the second part is going to be September 28th. It'll be 2 weeks later, because in between, on September 21st and the 20th actually, I will be at Pins and Needles in Mount Kisco, New York, teaching a couple of classes for them. I was there earlier this year. Delightful store. Plus, it's only 91 miles from my house, so I can drive there. It's a very easy drive, and Mount Kisco is pretty, and Pins and Needles is a fantastic little shop. So if you're in the neighborhood, I hope you stop in and say hi. Or I'm not sure if the classes are filled. I think they might be, but you can always check, because sometimes people have last minute things that come up where they can't attend and they thought they could earlier. Who else do we have? Hi, Alice. How you doing? Anyway, I've got a whole list of things that I wanted to mention. So that's that. Also, the biggest event, I guess, of the fall is the Houston Quilt Festival. I will be teaching 2 classes on Halloween, October 31st, morning and afternoon, and 2 classes on November 1st, morning and afternoon. So I think I better make a witch's hat or something like that. And I won't be flying down on my broom. I think I'll be taking an airline. So, oh, Diana, you're all signed up. Great. I'm looking forward to it too. Great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, the specialty feet and attachments class, going back to that for just a minute. I will be teaching it on the Bernina L890, but I've had a few people say, oh, I have an Ovation or a Triumph or another brand machine. Is this going to be a worthwhile class? Absolutely it is, because a lot of the feet and attachments look very similar from one brand to another, and they basically work the same too. Sometimes your settings on your machine might be a little bit different, but I do have a Triumph. I'm very familiar with baby lock machines and with other machines as well. And so I can help you. So if you're kind of on the fence about whether, because it's being shown on an 890, is it going to be good for me? I think you'll find that yes, it will be. And during the live class, we always have time for questions and answers. And if you think of something, or I don't get a chance to answer your class in that 3.5-hour time slot, you can always shoot me an email that day or 3 weeks later or whatever. And again, you always will have the link to the class. That gets sent out within 24 hours after the live class ends. So you will have that. And once you have that link, you own it forever. So you can go back and watch that as many times as you want. And somebody else asked, they said, I don't have all of the feet and attachments. Can I take the class? Of course you can, because it's a good way to get familiar with specialty feet and attachments. Not everybody does have all of them all at once. But you can see what they do, how they work. And I've said this a million times in decorative stitch classes on the sewing machine as well as the serger. Just because a specialty foot has a specific name, a good example is the blind hem or blind stitch foot. Excuse me just a second. I've got to get a drink of water. It's allergy season. Okay, so a good example is a blind stitch foot. Do I ever do a blind stitch on my serger? No. I'll show you how to do it, but I never do that. I would, if I was going to do a machine blind stitch, I'd always go to my sewing machine. But it has a guide on it that's great for a lot of other types of techniques. So just because something has a specific name doesn't mean that's all it can do. So no worries about that. And this is the kind of class where probably you'll want to watch and then go and do the techniques afterwards on your own. It's probably pretty easy to do that if you don't have pieces of fabric all set. We will be sending out the handout for that. I think it's going out tomorrow for part 1, and then we'll send out part 2 closer to the 28th on that. Hi, Nancy. Let me just see who else. Kim Myers. Oh, Kim, you can go, if you go to my YouTube channel and click on the video for, it's like the promo video for this class, you will see the link right below the video, and you can sign up from there. Ooh, hi, Sep from Germany. Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you here. So anyway, you can do that, or you can sign up from my website, gailpatrice.com. So either one. And you can sign up for either one session, the 21st, or part 2, the 28th. You know, at first I was trying to decide which feet should I include, and then I thought, well, look, why don't I do it as a 2-part class so I can get a bunch of feet in? And I think I will have time for a couple of bonus rounds. So We'll see how the timing on that class goes and all of the Q&A time and all of that stuff. So, but I think I will have time for a couple of bonus rounds. So that should be a great class and a lot of fun. And I've already had a couple of people who say they are, one woman was going to be at her husband's class reunion, so she can't watch it live, but she registered and she'll get the replay link and can watch it when it's convenient for her. So enough about that. Now, what else did I want to tell you about? I said I'm going to be at Mount Kisco, the Houston Quilt Festival on October 31st, and the 1st are my teaching dates. Oh, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek of a upcoming pattern that I have. And this is something interesting. I was doing this last night. I was changing around something, and I thought it would be kind of interesting to do this. But another thing that happened to me, and I, again, people think a lot of times when you're the instructor, nothing ever goes wrong, or you never make a mistake or anything else. Well, I was going to use my Thread Fusion a couple of weeks ago, and I was using the bypass brackets, and I had put my thread cradle through the air threading tubes, pulled the thread through, and I stitched, but I always do start on scrap fabric. That I promise you I always do. And the stitch looked weird. It wasn't correct. And I thought, So the first thing I always do when something like that happens is I change the needle, because a lot of times the needle can be the culprit if it's tired or there's a little burr on it or whatever. So I changed the needle, started stitching again, did the exact same thing. So I always like to start at the top of the machine, like up at the antenna, make sure everything's in. And I thought, well, maybe one of the threads popped out of the pre-tension area. It didn't. So I was like, I don't know what happened. Well, I thought this was very valuable, because I was not even aware that it had happened until I opened up the machine. And when you're using a thread cradle with the air threading tubes, I want to show you where to pick it up. And I've got I was testing this out earlier this morning before we went live to figure out where I could put the camera so that you could really see this. So I'm going to move it over before I switch the camera on the screen, because a lot of times that makes people dizzy. So let me move it over here, and I want to just show you exactly what I did. Well, yeah. So I think I have this. I'm going to open up the machine. My scissors out of the way. And now let me just see what this looks like when I go down to I think I have it like this. Let me go down to this camera. Okay, so I think I'm backwards. Let me rotate the camera around. There we go. Okay. All right. So we are looking at the inside of the machine, and let me just increase the exposure to brighten it up a little bit if I can. And I'm going to put my light on the machine too, to just give us a little more light down there. Whoops, I did have it on. Okay, so we're looking at the inside. Let me just give you a view. Here's the left side. Here is the knob. I'm going to close my threading tubes right down here. Okay, so now those are closed. Now, I am going to be threading my thread cradle through the chain looper air threading tube. So let me... how I did this before, that I had this all thrown away, but I think I can do it like this. So I've got my thread cradle here. I'm putting the cut ends through the lavender threading port. Whoopsie. Ooh, I don't want to drop my camera. Hang on. Sorry about that. Oh, that's actually pretty good. Okay, so I am going to put this through the air threading tube. This is quite a trick because I usually use this camera for my table shots, so sorry if it's jiggling. Okay, now here is where I made the mistake. Let me come over here. I'm going to retract my tubes. Now, what you want to make sure you do is that you pick up your thread cradle right here, right in front of, let me come up a little higher so you can see down. There we go. Okay, so here's the air threading tube retracted. What I must have accidentally done, which I don't know how I could have done it, is I think I grabbed the thread cradle over here, and my actual threads that I was using, my decorative threads, did not go through the two holes on these two little brackets. So that's what caused the stitching to look loose, and it just wasn't a good stitch formation. And I was really kind of surprised, and I think it was strictly by accident. It had to be because, you know, typically I would always pick it up in the place that I'm supposed to. But when you're using your locking fork, pick it up right in front of where the air threading tube is, right here. Let me grab it. Let me see if I can. I'm doing this one-handed because I'm doing my best to hold the camera steady. Let me pull this out just like this. I don't want to pull it out of the eye of the looper. So you can see that, and that was just a weird mistake that I made. I have no idea how that happened. But again, you always want to make sure that you're pulling the thread cradle right out from where the front or the mouth of that air threading tube is. So that's just a little tip from me, and that was because I made a boo-boo. And I always call these things learning opportunities. Even though it's a mistake, it's a learning opportunity, and it's a good thing for everybody to know. So let me just switch back to me for a second. You're probably all getting dizzy watching this anyway, so hang on. Okay, all right, so let me move this camera back over here where it typically is. Okay, good. So that's a couple of things. I want to talk about the knee lift and where to grab the threads with the bypass bracket. So those things are good to know. Now, I mentioned I have an upcoming pattern, and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I find that when I'm working on something and something doesn't look right, I get stuck. And I'm sure that has happened to all of you. And I was saying, I don't know whether it was over the weekend or last week or something like that. I said to my husband, I'm just kind of in a quandary about what color to put where on this new pattern. And he said, well, you know, it's always good sometimes just to walk away from a project and do something completely different. And he, silly him, said, why don't you try cleaning your studio or reorganizing it, straightening it up? And I was like, ooh, that's way too outside of what I want to do. So instead, I took my boxes of decorative threads and I reorganized those. I took out I had a whole bunch of threads that were kind of willy-nilly. I had a lot of 8 weights in with 12 weights and stuff like that. So I had gotten a new box for storage. And I just took out all of my 8 weights and I organized those by colors. And then I decided once I got going, I would reorganize all of my 12 weights by color. So that's what I did. And then I came up with a solution. So if you get stuck doing something, it is kind of good to walk away from something. As I said, I didn't feel like doing anything quite as ambitious as reorganizing my studio, but I am thinking about changing things around probably after the holidays, because I think I can make better use. I've got plenty of space, but I don't think I make the optimum use of it. So I'm going to get going. Barbara said, oh, Christmas is coming. Some early Serger projects and ornaments. Oh, would anyone else like to do a Serger Savvy before Christmas on the Christmas balls? Cecilia says she's been trying to get organized, but just keeps buying more stuff. I hear you. Yeah. So, yes, that's the dilemma about that. But yes, Christmas is coming. So going back to the specialty feet and attachments classes, if you see feet or attachments that you're interested in, then by all means put them on your list. What a great gift for somebody to give you, and you know you're going to use it. They know that it's a gift that you're going to really, really enjoy. So I think it's a fantastic thing. Or even if you're not decided on that, maybe a gift certificate to your dealer. Most of them do have gift certificates, and then you can go in and kind of decide what you want to get. So just a gift idea. Nancy Willis says yes to Christmas balls. Okay, good. All right. I'm just looking at my list here. Okay, so I am going to do a table shot. I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of my pattern that's upcoming. You're not going to see the whole thing. Let me make sure I've got the right camera on. Okay, yes. And this is a reverse applique. And let me bring down the exposure. I had it really high for the inside of the machine. Let me lower that exposure because it's blown out. The center fabric is a beautiful color green. I think it's showing up pretty well now. Okay, so this was where I had a dilemma. I originally had a different color fabric with stitching on it in here. And I really was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it was nice, but it wasn't perfect. And I said, I think I can figure out something better. So I did some stitching with this, and I went to my bag of all of my stitched out samples and was fiddling around, and I just didn't have anything that was quite the right color to work with this. Believe it or not, I've got 80 million samples. You would think I would, but I didn't. And anyway, so I just stitched this out. Now you're going to see this, and this is a good reason to see the class too. This is the belt loop binder that I used on this pattern, and I'm going to show you one other spot and then come back to this again. Here's a cool way to use your belt loop binder. And the Bernina one is going to be available, I believe, either at the end of September or the beginning of October. And it comes in 3 different widths. And I'm going to get into more of that on a tip clip coming up. But I just took different strips of fabric that were different colors from the other panels in this pattern, and I just wove them together. I put them on a fusible interfacing, wove them together, and when I had all of the strips done and got them all tightened up so you couldn't see the interfacing underneath, I hit it with the iron, and then I placed it in back of the window. So it's a really cool way to get some texture, add in a bunch of colors from your other project, or from other fabrics in your project, I should say. And it takes a little bit of time, but it's not bad, and it's just one of those things that's kind of nice to do, that is fun to see it come together. But let me just see. Barbara says, how can our L890s keep up with the newest machine and stitching? Not naming names. Okay. Well, I know there are some things going on with different stitches coming up. So that's all I can say too. And Barbara said she loves this. Yeah. So what I wanted to do, though, I wanted to talk to you about this because this was an interesting thing. I just happened to have done this last night. So I did the first line of stitching, and I had on my C23 need foot, which is the short clear foot. I've got it on now. Let me just take it off for a second and I can show you up close. Okay, and so here is the C23 clear curve foot, and this, let me get this on a solid piece of fabric so it's not distracting. So you can see here it is. No way you can't see it. Let me, hang on a second, I'm going to rotate my camera around. There we go. Okay, so here is the C13 foot. This is the cover chain stitch foot. It's strictly for cover and chain stitching because you see that it only has the 3 indicator ridges on the toe for those cover chain stitch needles. This is the C23. This can be used for both overlock as well as cover stitch mode. And you can see that the C23 foot is considerably shorter, and I will be talking about this in my class. So you'll see that the front of the foot does not fully cover your front feed dogs. But going back to this applique or reverse applique, I did the first line and I thought, ooh, I think I might like to have 4 lines of stitching that are all kind of parallel to each other. And I had done the first one with the C23 foot, but we've talked about the plastic feet versus metal feet. And I thought, well, maybe I might get better gripping with the metal foot so that it rides along. And this is 3 12-weight threads, so it really is dimensional. You can feel a definite ridge. It does not lay flat and kind of sink into the fabric. It sits on top of it. So I put my C11 or C13 foot on, and I did the next row of stitching. But you know, it was really interesting because when you do something like that immediately, like an immediate comparison between metal versus plastic foot, wow, what a difference it made. And the point I wanted to make about this is sometimes when you are working on fabrics that are kind of hard to control, they might be a little bit slippery or really thin, sometimes you are better off going to your metal foot because it does grab it. Now, I did have my presser foot pressure down to 1. It was definitely down to 1. And so I had very light pressure on it. But even with the metal foot, with that pressure lightened as much as possible, I could maneuver the fabric and the lines came out fine. But wow, it was so much easier putting the short clear curve foot on. It really made it easy to maneuver the fabric very quickly. So I wanted to pass that along too, and I'll probably say something about that in the Saturday class as well. But I just thought it was kind of a good way to really feel the difference between how a metal foot holds your fabric versus a clear plastic foot. And I mean, it does control it with the clear plastic. I don't want to say that, you know, it's all over the place. It certainly is not. But the difference between the clear plastic versus the metal foot was pretty significant for doing something decorative where you're going around curves. So just to pass that along. Any questions about anything so far? Oh, yeah, Nancy, you're in Sinking Spring. You're right near Fabric Mart. And Fabric Mart is such a great store for, I know they just redid their website for fabric, and their prices are phenomenal. Sometimes people ask me what are my favorite fabric sources. Fabric Mart in Sinking Spring, Pennsylvania is one of them, so it's great. Oh, Barbara says, sometime on a tip clip, she'd like to learn about foot pressure with different fabrics. That's a good one. Okay, so we can talk about that too, because presser foot pressure is something that is really important. And it's something that can really make a big difference, especially if you're doing a curve. That is one of the things that I always say when you've got, if you're doing something like a neckline, or just doing some quilting and you're doing a curved piece. It's good to have your clear curve foot on, but also to lighten that pressure foot pressure. And when I do decorative stitching, like you just saw, I bring that pressure foot pressure down to 1. There are times, like maybe on a garment or something else, where I want a little more pressure, just to make sure that I'm following exactly where I want to be. If it's something that requires very accurate placement, something like what you just saw with those lines is more free form, and if I go off a little bit, it's not the end of the world. But if I'm doing something with a garment or something on a quilt type project, then I definitely want to be right on the money for where I need to be on that stitching line. So thank you. I will put that in the queue for a tip clip idea. So that's great. Okay, so then the other thing that I wanted to talk about, when I was saying how I got stuck, and I know this happens to other people too, where you fiddle around and play around, and I do this with thread fusion all the time, where I'm always testing different thread color combos, and sometimes even different weights of threads in there. And I was doing this last night. I did this gold piece that is going to be the reverse applique on this. Let me just go back to this, and I'll show you really close what the colors are, because they're really pretty. You can see I had a dark purple, a green, and kind of a hot pink in there. And just to give you a sneak peek of this fabric on the side, all of those colors are in there. So then, and I was pretty happy with this, but when it comes to blending colors with thread fusion, you're not always going to hit the right combo to begin with. And that happened to me. I'm going to do some stitching in a few minutes. I have this piece of fabric that is going to be another reverse applique, but I had put together some colors. I think I had kind of I want to say almost like a burnt orange coral thread, I call it American cheese orange. It's that bright orangey, almost yellow color. And I had a black 12-weight thread in there. And when I stitched it out with the black thread, it looked yucky. It was not the color combo that was right. So then I switched that out for more of a deep rust color. And that I liked. And just to show you that I really do test my stitches, sometimes I'll leave fabrics that are already interfaced on my table to grab and then test. And this was the test that I did. This is where my thumb is, the one that you're going to see. So I always do test them out, and especially when you're blending colors, because sometimes you think you're going to hit the mark, and sometimes you do hit it right off the bat, but other times not so much. So I am going to thread up my machine. I have 3 12-weight threads that I'm going to be putting in the chain looper, and that was why I wanted to show you where to grab that thread cradle too, because I don't know how I did that time, quite honestly, because it's kind of an odd place to grab it, but it happened. And unless it blew through and I wasn't holding the thread at the eye of the looper securely, and it blew through further and I just grabbed it wherever it came out, I think that might have been the reason. But anyway, I'm going to thread up for that, and you can see all my cameras over here. You've got a bird's eye view of all of my equipment here. And then and I'm going to have to move my machine back, because I always try ahead of time to get all of my cameras all positioned. But then when I wanted to show you that with the where to pull out the thread with the thread cradle and the locking fork, I realized if I didn't move the machine back, then I'd have a problem. So let me get organized here. I'm going to pull my machine forward again. Those are the little suction cups on the bottom of the machine that you hear squeaking on the table. Does anyone have any questions or anything, or any comments that they want to make, or suggestions, or anything else while I'm getting this set up? I can see it right in the chat, and I will be looking over there momentarily as soon as I get my foot back on my machine. There we go. Okay. And let me get my thread cradle. And for my thread cradle, I am, believe it or not, a lot of times I'll leave the thread cradle sitting on the table rather than having to recut. I'll just leave that one thread there. So let me get that through. And remember, always hold your the loop of the thread cradle by the port, the threading port, so that it doesn't blow all the way through and go across your room, because I've had that happen. So let me see if maybe this camera will pick up some of this too. Oh wait, this camera is, I can lighten the exposure, see if we can get a better, not too bad. There we go. Okay, so here is the cut end of my thread cradle right through the eye of the chain looper. I'm grabbing this, and you can see here are the two brackets that you want to be sure your actual thread is going through. So your thread cradle also has to go through that. I'm going to grab it, pull it, and then I have my 3 12-way threads. I am putting those in the bypass bracket. All 3 of those are going through in here. And then you're getting a very good view of my hand. I know that. Let me see if, let me lower the exposure a little bit so you can see this. There's the loop of my thread cradle. I'm going to put this through. And I'll give you one other tip also on this. So let me pull this. Here it is, all 3 threads. Make sure you're not hung up on anything. Then I just kind of back that thread out. And I leave maybe about a 4-inch tail when I first thread my machine underneath for the chain looper. That's the upper and lower looper, you pull the thread to the top of the machine. For the chain looper, you're leaving that little tail under the bed of the machine. I can close up shop. And before I ever stitch, let me move this over, and I'm going to shut the light off on the machine so it doesn't glare. Before I ever stitch, when I've changed threads or just threaded up my machine, I always bring that thread up on scrap fabric. And that does double duty. It tests the stitch, it tests the colors, and stitch length. Now, right now, my stitch length is on 3. So let me straighten this up so you see better. And let me go to the screen. I'm going to lower this exposure. I have these exposures really high so you can see other things. I'm going to be on a 2-thread chain stitch. And right now you can see my stitch length is on 3. But with 3 12-way threads, way too short. I'm going to bring that up to, let's bring it up to 3.9 or 4. I think I had it on 4 when I tested it, and that was pretty good. And now you see it in yellow, so you know I have changed something from the default setting. It's a little bit dark. Now, I leave my tension settings when I do decorative stitching. in cover chain stitch mode. I leave them on the default setting. Whether I have 3 12-weight threads, 1 8-weight thread, serger cone thread, it's unusual because I don't need to change my settings for decorative thread, no matter how many or what colors, or not colors, but what weights I'm using. But the thing that's important to do is to make sure that you lengthen your stitch for multiple threads. And if your fabric isn't advancing, chances are your stitch might be too short. So I've got my scrap fabric and I've got the interface side up. And really, no matter how heavy or sturdy your fabric seems to be, I always suggest using some interfacing on the back. And this is Pellon SF 101, I believe the number is. It's very inexpensive. You can pick it up anywhere. I buy it by the bolt. And it works perfectly fine. This is a quilting weight cotton underneath. So let me just test and make sure that I'm liking the colors, which I know I already do, but I also want to bring that thread tail from under the bed of the machine to the top before I go on my actual fabric. I have my presser foot pressure down to 1, and I have that clear curve foot on so that I can maneuver the fabric easily. And when I get going with multiple threads, I always like to help the fabric get going. That is important. And once it does, once it's advancing and it's not having any trouble, then I know I'm good to go. So now let me just put my presser foot lever up by hand, and then I'll show you that I can lower it. So I'm coming under, got that locking fork, pulling my needle thread forward. My other pair of scissors right here, put that, it pulls it through, and let me take a look at the stitching. It's just this little short line of stitching right here, and that looks good. And so now we'll see what that looks like on the teal. Another thing that I think is always good to know is that sometimes it looks good on one fabric, like this one is kind of a reddish pinky fabric, but it's always good to make sure that you like it on the actual fabric that you're going to use. Now, have I done it on this fabric, which I want to be the applique? No. So you and I are going to find out together whether I do like it on this. And if not, no big deal. I've got more of this. I've already fused the interfacing to the back, same exact interfacing, and stitching with that wrong side face up. And I raised the presser foot with the lever in back. So let's just test and make sure that the presser foot goes down when I use the knee lift. So let's go back to the foots. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to put the presser foot down with my knee. There it works. So again, to whoever asked me that question, I apologize for giving you the wrong answer. Now, when I'm right near the edge, I think I'll come back a little bit closer to the edge. I'm going to start in at least 1/8 of an inch from that beginning edge. Let me lower that exposure a little bit too. That's better. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And I always like to help it get going. Now, and I think I'll use this as a practice piece because I think rather than doing curves, I think I want to do that pivot that I showed you in the most recent tip lift. So let me just grab this and see how I like these colors. Let's take a look at it over on the, oh, actually I do. I like it a lot. I'm going to move this out of the way. And let's go take a look at this on the table camera. Yeah, I like it. What does everybody think? This is those 3 different colors, two of them are pretty close to each other. If you see this in person, the camera isn't quite true. I can see that rust color pretty clearly, and that brighter orange is coming through with that American cheese orange over here. So you can see, I kind of like it. What does everybody think? Let me know. Sometimes when you're doing these things and you've got a certain color for base fabric, give me a thumbs up if you like it, because I do. I like it a lot. I think it's kind of pretty. And I like it again. This is this fabric, and the one that you saw, the black one with the little lines on it, those are, I'm not sure whether you say her last name, Durse or Dursey, but it's Marcia Dursey fabric. Oh, Marcy, this Marcy says looks nice. Okay, good. It's DERSE. I love her fabrics. They have a very modern vibe. I think that they're very contemporary looking, but they're not so far out that, you know, you wouldn't want to use them for something. I just think her designs are really nice. I picked up a few of them when I was at Bernina World of Sewing in Raleigh, North Carolina. They have an amazing selection of quilting cottons, and so I picked up a couple of the Marcia Jersey fabrics down there. But I really like this. So let me see what it looks like on this one. Yeah, I think it's going to be a winner. But I want to go back to my pivoting. So let's go back to the foot. Any questions? With the knee lift bringing the presser foot down, I needed to insert my knee lift in a more downward position. Then I could bring the presser foot down. Okay, Deborah, that's a great point to make. And when the woman who sent me that question asked it, I was wondering if maybe, I think you have to kind of nudge it with your knee a little more to the right to bring it down if you've raised the presser foot lever manually. So I wondered if maybe that might have been the problem, or that her knee lift wasn't fully inserted. So either one of those could have been the culprit for her, because I don't think there was anything that needed to go to a technician to fix. So I think either her knee lift might not have been in all the way, or she didn't give it quite enough of a nudge. And while we're talking about that, I think I've told you a number of times that when I got the 890 and the 850, even though I had knee lifts for all of my other machines, different brands and models, I never used the knee lift. They sat in the carton. And I found that I had to be really careful in the beginning. Now I'm just kind of used to it. But I had to be careful not to be too far to the right for where I was sitting, and because if my knee touched the knee lift and it lifted it the teeniest amount, the machine wouldn't stitch. And so I had to kind of train myself not to do that. So let's go back to the screen. Okay, so now you see those, the thread tails are up. Now, I always like, when I do multiple lines of stitching and they're going to be close to each other, I always give the beginning stitches a little bit of a haircut, just so that those threads don't get caught in a next line of stitching. You just want to be careful with something like that. So let's get in here. And then I want to do a little bit of pivoting. And I talked about this in the tip clip. Oh, Vicky says, because you and Pam are interested. The Bernina L890. Oh, you're interested in Bernina L8. The Bernina L890 is a great machine. There are lots of very good machines out there, but I really love this, and I love that 9mm overlock stitch, which is the only brand that has that. So let's do some pivoting on this so that you can see this again. I'm just going to do a little bit, and you can see when I am helping advance it when I get started. That is one thing that when I do in-person workshops, I always try to make sure that people help that fabric get going under it, because if they don't kind of help it move along with multiple heavy threads and you get that threadness, then the foot gets stuck and you've got need the jaws of life to get it out again. So we like to do that. So now I'm going to put my needle down position. I'm going to activate that so that when I stop, my needle's down. Now, speaking of the knee lift, I am just going to ever so slightly raise that presser foot enough to pivot the fabric. And the reason you only want to raise it a teeny tiny bit is if you open up those tension discs all the way or halfway even, that's when you can get that loose loop of fabric at the pivot point. You only want to raise the foot enough to be able to turn the fabric a little bit. Down, just a smidge. And again, with that presser foot pressure lever all the way down to 1, it makes it easy to lift it. I love having the needle down. It's so nice. It's not that it's a super big deal to have to crank the wheel by hand. Somebody had said that they didn't have needle down, and I said, well, you can consider that your upper body exercise too. I just want to make sure that I'm not going to get a little bit of a pucker there. I don't think so. Okay. And you know, because I'm doing a chain stitch with a single needle, I really like the look of a longer stitch, even if I'm doing just something like hemming a top or a tunic or something like that. I never have my stitch length shorter than, if I'm hemming something, even a lightweight knit, I never had my stitch length shorter than, say, 3.2 or 3.5, because if you look at ready to wear, that longer stitch length in cover stitch mode just looks nicer on garments. But also with the multiple threads, I think it makes the thread look like little bubbles or beads, which I think is kind of pretty too. But even for utility sewing, I like that longer length. We're getting to the end here. Yeah. And I've got plenty of this fabric, as I said, so I'm not worried about using this for a couple of different things. Okay, let's bring the needle up, grab it. Focus was good on this. Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so let me just cut this. Pull it out, cut this, and let's go over to the table shot and take a look at those pivots. I didn't do any really sharp pivots, but let's take a look at it and see what it looks like. Okay, so yes. That looks good. You don't see any loose loops of fabric. Even on these soft ones, it looks good. And in the tip clip, I also had one other tip that sometimes even, it's nothing that you did wrong, but it's just from the way you turn the fabric, that sometimes the stitch looks like it's kind of laying on its side on that pivot. If you take the tip of your iron, like right here, let me grab a pointer so my finger isn't in the way. But if you grab your iron and just give that a press right at that point, it will allow that to lay flat and you'll have that nice sharp pivot on these. This I would call a really soft pivot. But again, you don't have that loose loop of fabric either, so that's kind of nice. And this is with the 3 12-way threads in the chain looper. Let me come back here. Were there any questions about that at all, or anything that you're wondering about why I did something a certain way? Anyone want to jump in on anything? But so a longer stitch length, presser foot pressure for decorative stitching down to 1. I use the clear curve foot. Now, do I need to use, if I'm doing straight lines for the pivoting, do I need to use a clear curve foot? No. But I could put on my C27 clear foot, which is the standard length clear foot, and use that and get the visibility that I have with the clear curve foot. But I could also still go back to my C13, my covered chain stitch foot as well. The downside to that is I don't have quite as much visibility, but it does grab the fabric a little bit more. I wouldn't use it for doing curvy lines, but you could use it for straight lines where you're pivoting, if that makes sense. So any other questions? We're getting right to about 1 o'clock Eastern time. But I hope I see a bunch of you. I know a lot of you have already registered for the class on Saturday. If any of you are waiting for your order for a large thread fusion, I just want to get this in, that delivery is coming from the manufacturer today. I just got notified this morning that the order will be here this afternoon. So if it arrives early enough before the post office closes, I'll get those orders out this afternoon. Also, I have some new locking forks coming in. I was just about, I don't think I had any of the red left, and I had just a couple of the blue. Those will also be in the same order. So if you're waiting for that, I will ship it. If it comes before 5 o'clock, I will be able to get it out this afternoon. If not, it'll go out tomorrow morning. But thank you all so much. Barbara says, wonderful, you can just remember. Well, the great thing is, Barbara, I actually remembered to hit the record button this time. So if you need a refresher, you can go back onto my YouTube, because this will automatically upload to my YouTube channel. So you can always go back, and I am only an email away, so you can always ask me a question. But thank you all for joining me today. This is wonderful. I always think it's so much fun, and it's even more fun when I can get all my cameras working. So I thank Amanda for that tip with the multiple cameras. She was the one who tipped me off to her little trick, because she had the same problem. But Jean, thank you. Thanks, everybody. And for anyone who's coming to the class on Saturday, I will see you on Zoom from noon to 3:30 Eastern time this Saturday. And if anyone has any questions about the content in the class or anything else, shoot me an email and I will get back to you. Thanks so much. And all of you have a great day. Happy sewing. And I don't know about you, but I'm already starting to think about holiday stuff. And I will put the Christmas ball on the list for an upcoming Serger Savvy. So that will be a lot of fun. And I think just real quick, because now it's a little bit past the hour, real quick, what I will do is send out a suggested list of things that you'll need if you want to make yours along with me. But if you don't and you just want to watch it, great too. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Happy sewing and searching.